Next to the fentanyl crisis wreaking havoc in communities across the country, the overdoses, drug seizures, and concerns continue to grow from coast to coast. But some experts tell us before we try to get a sense of just how bad things could get, we need to explore how this all began. That's why our Bob Woodruff traveled for part 2 of our weekly series, Poisoned, to West Virginia, where the opioid epidemic has now evolved into a fentanyl nightmare.
How bad is it getting, fentanyl use?
I picked up a friend not too long ago, actually. He was doing it.
General Illness Company 61 respond.
That's us, 61.
This is a daily occurrence for the Clarksburg EMS team.
38-year-old female requesting detox. She's in a blue hoodie in front of the library.
This woman is going through withdrawal and is seeking help.
Right there, he'll take care of us.
Okay. She was using last week. She has the urge to use again, and she doesn't want to.
They hope she ends up one of the lucky ones, because what this team sees most are overdoses.
Pretty daily, probably 2 or 3 times a day. Usually when you get one, you get 3 or 4. It's just 100 times worse.
Fentanyl is an opioid up to 50 times more powerful than heroin, killing people old or young.
There is no age. I've seen teenagers and I've seen 70-year-olds.
3 overdoses today alone.
So do you think this is going to stop?
I think it's going to get worse.
18, I have a 31-year-old female.
That's probably an overdose.
This is Clarksburg, West Virginia, an estate many consider to be ground zero of this opioid crisis that has just swept through America.
In 2021, this state ranked the highest in terms of overdose death rate in the country per capita.
Those maps tell you how it all began. Those states are really struggling, and they have been for many years. But the amazing thing is that it's all over the country now.
Fentanyl is responsible for most of the drug deaths in this state, but the crisis really started nearly 3 decades ago, and no one saw it coming.
It begins with prescription painkillers prescribed by doctors.
In the 1990s, pharmaceutical companies started to market hundreds of millions of prescription pain pills in towns like this one, at first to counter chronic pain from surgeries or accidents.
Pharmaceutical companies targeted these vulnerable regions like West Virginia, Eastern Tennessee, because doctors in those areas were already prescribing a lot of other kinds of pills. The idea that opioid prescription painkillers can be prescribed to all manner of pain patients, and doctors will run virtually no risk of those patients getting addicted.
But risk of addiction quickly became obvious in towns like Clarksburg. Megan Malcolm has lived here and with addiction nearly her whole life.
Pharmaceutical companies are probably the worst thing that's ever happened to this state. Nobody was prepared. Nobody knew that they were going to get a drug that was supposed to help alleviate pain that was going to tear down their entire heritage. There's not one person that I didn't know by the time I was 18 that was physically and fully addicted to opioids.
These were areas hard hit by economic pain, physical pain. A lot of them were, factories have gone out, coal mines have shuttered down.
If you look at these buildings, the windows are shattered, it's completely abandoned. This used to be the center of the economy. The glass factories that closed down in the 1970s and 80s. About 800 jobs were lost.
Purdue Pharma began to sell Oxycontin, the painkiller often referred to as Oxy, in 1996, and a phenomenon began to take place.
I was addicted to Oxys by the time I was 16, 17 years old.
Purdue aggressively marketed the drug as basically non-addictive, providing videos like these to medical practitioners.
Less than 1% of patients taking opioids actually become addicted.
And doctors began to write prescription after prescription.
I really feel like I'm in the place I'm supposed to be.
Lou Artenzio was once one of those doctors.
You know, the drug companies told me this was a good idea. It was control people's pain. People had a right to that. You know, you want to make it better. So, and these drugs are safe. They're not addictive, we were told. Of course, you think about it now.
That was a
it's
lie.
a lie. It was a foolish idea.
You get feelings of guilt?
Certainly, certainly. I deal with it every day. I mean, a lot better than I was. I never envisioned prescribing something for pain would have this catastrophic tidal wave effect.
Lou himself got caught in that tidal wave, becoming addicted to the very pills he'd been prescribing.
How many pills were you taking?
I started out with one sample pain pill at the end of the day. In the end, it was 30 and 40 a day. And then I'd slowly run out, and then I was sick. Then I just wanted to not be sick, because coming off opiates, you're really sick.
Yeah, dope.
You're totally, dope sick, right.
Dope sick is a term used to describe the intense opiate withdrawal symptoms. It's also the title for the Hulu series starring Michael Keaton, who plays a doctor in a small West Virginia town prescribing his patients Oxycontin, then becoming addicted himself.
It was very accurate, uncannily accurate. It really shook me up, to tell you the truth. How do you do it over the long term?
The character is actually based in part on Dr. Stephen Lloyd, who practiced in the eastern Appalachian region of Tennessee.
So while this was happening in West Virginia and Dope Sick and the show, and yet the same thing's happening in Tennessee.
The exact same thing was happening in Tennessee, and it was happening to a young doctor fresh out of residency.
So this all started because the dentist gave you something to kill the pain.
Absolutely, and you know, I'd had some dental work done, and they gave me samples right out of the closet and said, here, if you need these, you can take one every 4 hours. In my chief resident year, on my way home from work, pulled up to a red light and was having a pretty tough day. I thought, you know, my patients take these things all the time. And broke one out, broke it in half, and threw it in my mouth. And by the time I got home, I felt like I'd found a cure for about everything that ailed me. Anxiety, depression, all of it had melted away. I knew their addictive potential. What I didn't realize was how quickly it happened. I would go into my bathroom where I got dressed in the morning, and I laid my kids' pictures next to my sink, and I would look at those pictures in the morning and cry, because I couldn't stop. I mean, you're a father, right? That's the most important thing in your life, but it's not. The most important thing in your life is this pill that you have to have in order for this to be okay.
Just in West Virginia alone, over the span of 6 years in the mid-2000s, pharmaceutical companies sold about 780 million pain pills to the people here in this state. That means approximately 430 pills available to every man, woman, and child.
What does the future hold? What does the future hold for kids that grew up with parents that they lost and their own risk for substance use disorder going forward?
To make things better.
Steve and Lou have been sober for many years. Now they're trying to help others do the same. Steve's recovery center is based in Nashville.
When I started going around with fentanyl,
It's one thing to say I'm sorry, and it's another thing to go out and try to make a difference.
Lou's center is here, in the town where he once practiced medicine, now providing a place to live, to eat, and find therapy through faith.
Salvation was made available to all.
Though Oxycontin and other painkillers slowly became harder to prescribe, the pharmaceutical companies and doctors had already created an enormous new population of people suffering from addiction.
They got rid of Oxys and everything. It wasn't so easy, but by then we were all addicted to them. And it was just replaced with heroin.
The damage was already done. heroin replaced those pills.
Heroin has fallen off substantially.
And now, phase 3. Fentanyl is being found throughout the drug supply, leading to more overdoses and far more fatalities, putting those living with addiction at greatest risk.
I've had 4 of my friends die within the past 8 months for fentanyl.
How bad is it getting here in this town?
People I love die quite often.
The opioid epidemic switch to fentanyl was not easily noticed by users, often having no idea the dealers were adding it to their drugs.
Did any of you guys know that there was fentanyl when you first took it?
No.
So you thought it was heroin or meth
Yeah.
or something, and then it's just added in?
Yeah.
How many of you took fentanyl without even knowing that it was in there? Why didn't they tell you that there was fentanyl in it?
Because they just want to sell their product.
The folks that are dying are younger, and in their 20s and 30s.
We lose multiple patients every week.
You just lost some this week?
Absolutely.
In the week before that?
The week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that. There's no weeks go by that we don't.
Recent data suggests that over 70% of America's heroin supply right now contains fentanyl.
Just a recipe for disaster. It's poison. It's pure poison. You don't know what it is.
All I've ever known is addiction. And most of the people that I love, the people that I grew up with, that's all they've known too. It's hard to have hope because we're just West Virginia. Who's going to come help a bunch of West Virginia residents deal with the trauma that they've endured from being addicts since they were 9, 10, 11, 12 years old? You know, Big Pharma made money off of us. And now drug dealers are.
It's a seemingly endless cycle for those who feel forgotten by the system. Opioids have since extended beyond the Appalachian region. Last year, states reported an unprecedented number of opioid deaths, most caused by fentanyl. And nationwide, fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for those between the ages of 25 and 44.
Is there a link between Oxycontin prescribing and fentanyl today? And yes, absolutely, it's a direct line. These folks that are coming in with fentanyl, 98% of them got started with pain pills.
There's no way to deal with the drug problem unless you deal with the people.
Do you think you will get off the addiction?
I have no choice. If I don't, I'll die. I'm surprised I'm not dead now.
4 days a week.
And to shield those she loves most from suffering the same fate, Megan, a mother of 3, can no longer be a part of her children's lives.
So you might never see your kids again?
It is best just to stay away because I don't know if I'll ever be better completely. And I don't want them to ever, ever have to deal with the things that I had to.
In order to fix the problem, you have to understand how it all started. Our thanks to Bob Woodruff for his continued work on our series, Poisoned.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.